All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are connected. Welcome to MCJ Report number 177. I hope that everybody is having a nice evening and that everybody has enjoyed a nice dinner. Hopefully you all had a lovely weekend and got up to something very good. Today we're doing MCJ Report on Tuesday night, as I had campaigning duties last night that needed to be attended to. And let me say that our progress is coming along very, very nicely. We have less than 3 months remaining until D-Day. That's right, the Victorian state election. I can tell you we are set for one huge battle, so we need as many hands on deck as possible. So why don't you go ahead and comment in the comment section what you're planning on doing during this campaign period in order to contribute towards certain people not getting re-elected and certain new people getting elected. Anyway, I can see that we're connected across 3 platforms. Awesome stuff. I love it when things work. Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. I see a lot of familiar names. There is Braden, Mandy, how you going? Maria there on YouTube. Dean from Newcastle, how you going? Thank you for joining us down in Danistan, the Republic of Danistan. Soon not to be, that's right, we're going after Dan Andrews in his electorate of Mulgrave, where I can tell you that his constituents do not like him. That's right, I've been out speaking to people in Mulgrave, even in the shopping strip where Dan Andrews' office is. I can tell you the business owners have had an absolute gutful of him, and I think there's a very strong chance that the man known as Dan will be toppled in November. What do you reckon, guys? Would that call for a celebration? What should we do as a celebration? Street party? I'm open to ideas. There's Janet there. There's Kelly. Why don't you guys go ahead and give the broadcast a share? We've got a few interesting bits and pieces to talk about this evening. I'm going to cover 3 main subjects tonight. So we'll be talking about the $40 million spend on, quote, injecting rooms. That's right. Well, they call them safe injecting rooms. I'm not particularly convinced how safe they are, but we're going to have a talk about it. Also, we'll be talking about a decision, let's call it a decision by the government of California to urge residents to not charge their electric vehicles. That's right. First they were urged to purchase electric vehicles, and now they're told, nope, don't go and charge them. So what's that all about? Also, there was an alleged, all right, now we have to say alleged, of course, because pending investigation, assassination attempt on the vice president of Argentina. So we're going to have a little bit of a look about that and maybe bring up a few bits and pieces that the media is not publishing at this stage, so we can perhaps gain a better insight into some of the social problems over there in Argentina, and to also serve as a prompt to factors that we should be considering and looking out for here in Australia. It's all relevant, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever in the world there is corruption or wrongdoing, we must pay attention, learn from it, and inspect our own representatives in Parliament to determine if similar activities are going on in Australia. And unfortunately, most of the time you'll find that they absolutely are. Alrighty, there's Sharon. There's our man Andrew right there. That's right, candidate for Mill Park. So make sure that you go ahead and give Andrew a follow. He's doing a tremendous job as always. Sharon is on the ball. That's right. So people that show up to the MCJ broadcast to cause trouble, Sharon kicks them out pretty quickly. So Sharon, thank you very much for what you do as well. Diane says, your birthday seeing him gone would be great. Your birthday is November 26th. Well, we intend on delivering you a fantastic birthday present of getting rid of Dan and getting good people who love this state elected to Parliament. How good would that be? How good would that be? Alrighty, now I can see there is a troll in the chat using my name. Alright, so there's a fake Morgan C. Jonas in the chat. So Sharon, if you could get rid of that person, that'd be fantastic. And be aware, guys, because there is an army an absolute online army of fake Morgan accounts, messaging people, proclaiming that certain people have won prizes, trying to lure people into obscure cryptocurrency arrangements. Please do not get fooled by these scam accounts. I hope that none of you have been tricked into it, but just know there's no prizes, there's no weird cryptocurrency, quote, investment opportunities or anything like that you'll ever see on my page. So be aware, block them, report them to Facebook. Well, then again, I've reported these accounts so many times. Many of my supporters have reported these accounts, and more often than not, Facebook replies with a message to the effect of, this account is not in violation of our community standards. So apparently it's okay. Apparently certain activities on Facebook are okay, but saying other things are not okay. So you try and explain it to me. I don't understand it. I don't understand how a fake account seeking to scam people could possibly be considered something that is reasonable within the realm of community standards. But then again, I don't work for Facebook. I don't really understand their logic or the ethos of the organization. I'm just here to make broadcasts, to run Freedom Party, and to play a role in getting rid of Dan and restoring normalcy and decency to Victoria. And I think many of us are in the same boat. So how about we get stuck into some stories, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Alrighty, now what do we have first on the agenda? Let's see, what do we have here? No, it's not that. Alrighty, Andrews' $40 million spend on injecting rooms. That's right. So the Dan Andrews government, in typical fashion, spending more of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars on an injecting room. That's right. We've seen huge splurges from this guy over the years, and I dare say the debt that has accumulated will be one that haunts future generations of Victorians for a very long time to come. Now, we've of course seen the debacle with the North Richmond injecting room, which of course can absolutely be described as an operation that has put the community at risk, especially being positioned right next to a school. What train of thinking do these politicians have when they make these decisions? What do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. So let's have a little bit of a look here. The new proposed site for the new, quote, safe injecting room. Let's just call it an injecting room. I think that's probably a more suitable description, is the Melbourne CBD. All right, so what do we have here? Drug researchers call for more safe injecting rooms. Right, so it says Victorians will go to the election not knowing where the city's next injecting room will be after the Premier conceded a key report was unlikely to be finished. All right, but it appears extremely likely that it will be in the CBD, and I can tell you that many small business owners are very concerned about what that may mean for their small businesses. So we see a guy here injecting on the streets in Richmond, clearly the injecting room not serving its, quote, intended purpose. So now our friend in the upper house, Catherine Cumming, last year, she raised questions about the spending and exactly what the spending would be used for in relation to the injecting room. So I'm just here on the Parliament of Victoria website. This is questions without notice from the 8th of June 2021, and this is from Catherine Cumming. She said, quote, "My question to the Minister for Health in other place, will the Minister provide a breakdown of the 40.1 million contained in the 21 to 22 and 22 to 23 budgets for medically supervised injecting rooms?" Okay, now you can find this on the Victorian Parliament website. Now, unfortunately, she didn't get a very nice answer at the time, and that's to be expected from Miss Smins, Jacqueline Smins. I think you pronounce her name like that. Not completely sure, and for the record, who cares? But anyway, she said, quote, "Dr. Cumming, there is a bit in your question. I'm happy to seek some further advice in relation to the breakdown of funding over the estimates you have articulated," and fair bit of dribble, filling in spaces, filling in the gaps, things like that proceeded after that. Now, Catherine was simply asking a very reasonable question, and she made some further follow-up remarks, which should be noted actually by all Victorians who are perhaps concerned about this new injecting room, or people who think it's a good idea should really start to look at some of the other facts involved. All right, so Catherine said, "How dare you say I would not have attended and do not understand it?" Because Smines accused Catherine of not attending or nor understanding. She said, quote, "Can the Minister please explain why more injecting rooms are planned when the issues with the North Richmond site have not been resolved. There have been around 50 lethal overdoses in the room and the surrounding area. That is a 1,000% increase. Ambulance attendance for drugs increased by 15% in the first year. It is double any other local government area. This is Richmond. Injecting on the streets has not decreased. Okay, now that is, of course, the very proposed intention to decrease injecting on the streets, right? It says here syringes are being collected at a rate of over 111,000 a year. All right, keep in mind this is in relation to the original Richmond site. In that surrounding area, that is nearly double the 60,000 needles collected in the whole of Yarra as part of the justification for this room. All right, so an answer was subsequently produced a couple of days later, which, as to be expected, kind of eluded, I suppose you could say, in relation to the breakdown of the costs, the staffs involved, the certain expertise that was to be acquired by the government for the personnel working in these injecting rooms, and that the money would be very well spent and save a lot of lives, and what reduce injecting on the street or syringe disposal on the street, despite there being no evidence whatsoever to suggest that these injecting rooms prevents people disposing of their syringes in the streets. Now, we look across to some of the debacles of the Richmond injecting room. I have a great article here, definitely worth a read. This was published on the 13th of May this year. Terrifying spate of incidents at primary school next door to Richmond's injecting room. Shocking documents reveal the true extent of what Richmond's West Primary School students have encountered since the injecting room opened. All right, this is most definitely worth a big read, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to shoot off some dot points from the article here, and people need to get across this because this is the potential detriment to the local community, I would have to think, by far outweighs any type of benefit in relation to the establishment of such centres. Quote, a man exposing himself outside the school fence next to a playground in November last year. Remember, injecting room right next to a school. Two offenders made their way through the side gates of the school and appeared to be having sex on school grounds in August 2020. School being forced into lockdown in March last year after a male tried to gain entry into the school and ignored requests to leave. School was forced to call police. The man was circling nearby the front gates. A person located with drugs on school grounds after police were called due to them loitering, also in March last year. All right, so given the events surrounding the establishment of this centre, it's only fair and reasonable that small business owners in the CBD would also have some significant concerns. Another question we need to be asking ourselves, of course, is what is the cost-benefit analysis? Where is it? Has it been written? And if it has been written, will it be published? What the Victorian public deserves to know is what is our return? We're happy for our tax dollars to be spent if those dollars are genuinely helping people who need them the most. But are those people getting help? Or are these injecting rooms simply perpetuating a cycle of drug dependence? It's a question I ask you, ask your friends. This is MCJ Report. Put your thoughts in the comments. Moving along here. All right. Another catastrophe from the Richmond Injecting Centre. Richmond safe injecting room staff arrested for alleged drug trafficking. Fantastic. Get a government job, working in the injecting room, and sell drugs on the side to those who are vulnerable. What is the selection criteria for these places, ladies and gentlemen? I'm just going to play you a little bit of a clip here, just the first 30 seconds or so. I don't think you can hear that. Hold on 1 second.
A drug trafficking scandal is unfolding at Richmond's safe injecting room tonight, with 2 staff arrested in a big police operation. The social workers are in custody and facing trafficking charges.
Yeah, perfect. Trafficking charges, right? Safe. Trafficking safe. All right, moving along here, I'm going to show you some statistics. This is from a very reputable website, ourworldindata.org. I highly recommend it to you at home. Great statistics on a range of different issues and metrics from around the world. So what we're looking at here, deaths from drug use disorders. Quote, as it was covered for total substance use deaths. The stats here cover only direct death rates reported to occur from drug use disorders, does not account for indirect, such as suicides, which may or may not have been linked to drug abuse and addiction. So we look at the map here, we look at the countries that have the highest ratio per 100,000 people for drug overdoses and deaths. And as indicated on the map, the countries that have the darker shade of blue are countries that have the higher rate. So we see United States, very bad rate right here, 18.83. Look at Canada, 6.28 deaths per 100,000 individuals. We got United Arab Emirates, 5.82. We have Australia here, 4.11. So Australia, most definitely in that upper echelon, which begs the question, are these injecting rooms a good idea? Or instead, should Australia be focusing on potentially drug policy reform, rehabilitation reform? Because whatever the government is doing and continues to do is clearly not working. Alrighty, so we look around the world where other countries have had success in curtailing the use of illicit drugs and minimizing overdoses and drug-related deaths. Portugal went through some major drug policy reform in the early 2000s, so I'm just going to read a little bit here to you, and hopefully there are some members of parliament that might be watching MCJ Report, but we're not going to hold our breath, all right? They're not going to tune in, so what do we need to do in this instance? We need to vote them out and vote people in who will actually make an effort to tackle problems at their cause, not simply offering band-aid solutions like, injecting rooms. Alrighty, how Portugal is solving its opioid problem. Says here, quote, by focusing on public health instead of incarceration, the country has stopped an opioid epidemic. Psychologists are playing a key role in this dramatic turnaround. I'm going to read to you a little bit here. It says, thanks to an innovative law that went into effect in 2001, Portugal has turned its crisis around. The law decriminalized the use and possession of up to 10 days worth of narcotics or other drugs for individuals' own use. In brackets, dealers still go to jail, which I think is something that most people would probably agree with. It says here, instead of facing prison time and criminal records, users who are caught by police go before a local 3-person commission for the discussion of drug addiction, a panel typically composed of a lawyer plus some combination of a physician, psychologist, social worker, or other healthcare professional with expertise in drug addiction. The commission assesses whether the individual is addicted and suggests treatment as needed. Non-addicted individuals may receive a warning or a fine. And so it's important to point out that decriminalization does not mean legalization. So there's still civil penalties involved for people dealing in these illicit drugs, but rather than brandishing them as criminals and sending them to jail, forms of rehabilitation are offered to these people instead. So what sort of results have we seen from the implementation of this policy in Portugal? I'll keep reading. It says here, quote, shifting from a criminal approach to a public health one, the so-called Portugal model has had dramatic results. According to a New York Times analysis, the number of heroin users in Portugal has dropped from about 100,000 before the law to just 25,000. Portugal now has the lowest drug-related death rate in Western Europe, with a mortality rate 1/10 of Britain's and 1/15 of the United States. The number of HIV diagnoses caused by injection drug use has plummeted by more than 90%. All right, so I dare say, ladies and gentlemen, that the answer to Australia's drug problem is not injecting rooms and fueling people's addictions in a so-called safe environment. I say that it is policy reform in relation to drug use, how we treat people who are suffering from drug addictions, and of course, options for rehabilitation. And options for rehabilitation, what should we do? Well, we look to the world in order to determine which country is the most effective. You don't recreate the wheel. You learn, you look, you implement. It's not rocket science. Alrighty, where are we now, ladies and gentlemen? On to the next segment. Just going to make sure that you guys are connected here to make sure that it's all smooth. I can see Rumble, a lot of my regular Rumble crew on board. Facebook appears to be doing what Facebook does, all connected. There's Kim, Patrick, Diane, Betty. Fantastic. I can see we're all here. And guys, put your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the injecting rooms? Do you think we need drug reform in this country? Do you think that people who are addicted to drugs should be treated like criminals and sent to jail? Or should we have a different approach? An approach that could offer a pathway to rehabilitation? Does jail serve as rehabilitation for, quote, offenders, or does it perpetuate cycles of antisocial and or criminal behavior? These are the core questions that need to be asked, and Daniel Andrews and his Labor colleagues can beat their drum all day about these so-called safe injecting rooms and everything they claim to be doing in relation to, quote, saving people. But we need to get down to business and attack issues at the absolute core. Otherwise, they continue. Anyway, that's my rant. Rant over in relation to illicit drug use. Moving along here. Let me just move out of the way. California government instructs residents to not charge their EVs. All right, that stands for electric vehicles. So, ladies and gentlemen, why do you think this is? What in the world is going on? I thought everybody was supposed to purchase electric vehicles, and now the poor residents of California have been instructed not to charge them. Alrighty, let's see. What do we have? California urges residents again not to charge their electric vehicles on busy travel weekend. California's grid operator said grid strain is going to get much more intense. All right, so it's an infrastructure problem. The electricity grid is under too much pressure because there's simply not enough energy to go around for everybody who needs it in California. Why is this, folks? The United States, big producer of energy. Let's take a bit of a look here. So, first of all, we can't blame the economy. What's going on here? All right, a video started playing, getting rid of that. So California has a big economy, okay? The biggest state economy in the United States, with a GSP, that stands for Gross State Product, of 3.4 trillion US dollars. It's a very, very big and powerful economy, all right, with a population of roughly 40 million people. So you've got a very healthy GSP per capita for the state of California, meaning there should be really no reason for these types of shortages. Just to put that in a little bit of contrast to Australia, we look at our GDP, gross domestic product, is 1.3 trillion US dollars. So the Californian economy, nearly 3 times the size of ours. Of course, we have less people, but nonetheless, just wanted to draw a little comparison there. So we see a very healthy economy, but what's going on? So, new data indicates California remains ahead of clean electricity goals. Now, I'm not saying that the information I'm about to present to you is in any way, shape, or form related to the energy shortages in California. I'll let you do your own research. I'm just here to present some facts, and who knows? Let's see what we come up with. Anyway, data from the California Energy Commission shows that 59% of the state's electricity came from renewable and zero carbon sources in 2020. The CEC estimates that in 2020, 34.5% of the state's retail electricity sales were served by renewables portfolio standard eligible sources such as solar and wind. All right, so 34.5% of the state's electricity sales. It says here, quote, when sources of zero carbon energy such as large hydro electric generation and nuclear are introduced, 59% of the state's retail electricity sales came from non-fossil fuel sources in 2020. California has a very progressive goal to obtain what they refer to as, quote, 100% clean energy. Alrighty, so, and we see that the Californian government has invested as it says here, $1 billion, I presume, of taxpayer money into these so-called clean energy projects, and has apparently attracted $7.8 billion in private investment. So there should really be no reason, ladies and gentlemen, that California is experiencing energy shortages. But of course there is. Now, we must contrast this to Australia. We can look at the state government here in Victoria. We can look at the millions, billions, subsidizing various energy producers and ask ourselves, where is this all heading? Are we going to see the same energy shortages in Australia? Well, we don't know for sure, but we look at the facts. The facts tell us that the Victorian state government is intent on shutting down our power stations. That's right, our baseload power stations, without providing any type of plan or any type of cost-benefit analysis for the energy source of which the government proclaims to be replacing our baseload power. The government just expects us to believe that everything will be okay, whilst simultaneously siphoning millions of our taxpayer dollars to fund these energy industries. And we need to ask ourselves the question, if these alternative sources of energy were so plentiful, reliable, and affordable, then why in the world do they require such large amounts of government subsidies, all right, which of course is a fancy way of saying our tax dollars. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that, ladies and gentlemen, because here in Victoria, of course, the government is planning to phase out our baseload power, and of course, governments in Australia, they're not interested in looking at nuclear energy whatsoever. And it's very concerning to think what may happen to our electricity bills should the same characters in Parliament continue to operate the way they do, which is, of course, without any consideration for the average working man and woman and families. Alrighty, moving along here, what do we have next? Alright, alleged assassination attempt on Argentine Vice President. Her name is Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. That's right. I'm going to show you the footage, and then we're going to have a little bit of a talk about Argentina and some of the reasons why very large amounts of people in Argentina really do not like this person. All right, take a look. And I should probably say some people could potentially be disturbed by this content. The gun does not go off. I should probably just give you a heads up anyway. All right, so pretty brazen act that we saw there. Of course, it's alleged, and the matter will be, well, exactly that, a matter for the courts of Argentina to determine. Now, this particular person is the former president of Argentina, and sure, she has plenty of supporters, but she also has many, many people who do not support her in any way, shape, or form. There have been numerous very large protests against this exact individual held in Argentina over the years, protests that have been reported to span into the hundreds of thousands of people on the street. And the main concern that many of her detractors have is in relation to the out-of-control crime in Argentina, the human trafficking, the corruption, this particular individual's relationship with the International Monetary Fund, which is considered to be inappropriate by many Argentinians, and also foreign policy that many people in Argentina consider is putting their critical supply chains at risk. Okay, so trade agreements that are undermining the Argentinian workforce and capability to produce what they need. Does that sound familiar to you here at home, ladies and gentlemen? So this particular individual, she's actually she's under there's an ongoing matter, and she's looking at potentially 12 years in prison for alleged corruption, believe it or not, in relation to the accused. So she's been accused of siphoning funding out of infrastructure contracts to line the pockets of her friends. I wonder if that sort of stuff is going on in Victoria. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, what is it with these people, folks? So there's a whole range of issues. I'm certainly not in any way, shape or form condoning what happened. Of course, I do not agree with assassination in any way, shape or form. But I guess what I'm trying to explain is that the growing resentment for this particular person in office has been growing, and I can't understand why somebody in her position would walk out of a venue to her vehicle whereby the public had, for several minutes, unfettered access to her. Somebody of that profile, you'd figure, would leave through a back door, surrounded by an absolutely large number of bodyguards. Why would somebody like her put herself in a position of risk out in the public, knowing that there are millions of Argentinians who really don't like her at all? It doesn't make any sense to me. Is it poor planning? What is it? I don't quite understand it. Anyway, there's a lot of issues in Argentina, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't like the government. There's a very overt divide between the haves and the have-nots in Argentina. I'm concerned that we're sliding that way in Australia as well, unless we change parliament. But if you at home go ahead and Google images of, say, rich versus poor neighborhoods in Argentina, you'll see these top-down aerial photographs of a nice, beautiful neighborhood separated by a big wall and slums on the other side. I'll see if I can pull one up for you in just a second, actually. Let me try and find one for you right now so you can see what we're dealing with. And whenever there is that type of divide in society, in my view, it can only be the result of government corruption. Just give me a sec. I'm going to try and pull one up. One moment, folks. Multitasking here. I'm a one-man band, so thank you for bearing with me. All right, Argentina. Okay. Let me just see what I can pull up. Google Images. Okay, here's a photo right here. It's just loading. Coming from the capital in Buenos Aires. Okay. Alright, so alright, you can see this image there. Obviously, this is from the capital. So on the left side, you see beautiful houses, swimming pools. The right side, you see slums and people living in misery, and the officials appearing to ignore this very apparent disparity in society. Also, there's massive issues with human trafficking. There's been multiple investigations and recommendations made by the State Department in the United States for Argentina to allocate funding to the investigation of human trafficking, so including but not limited to child trafficking, forced prostitution, organ harvesting, that type of thing. And there have been major concerns raised about official complicity that is in relation to government officials participating in the crime against humanity of human trafficking. And this is not an issue that is solely, of course, restricted to any one country. It's been documented, written about. There's a very good article that was published by the University of Utah in relation to various countries around the world whereby governments are complacent and complicit in human trafficking. So lots and lots of issues over there, folks. I've just seen a whole series of news articles talking about this alleged assassination attempt. So I think it's also important to put into context the general pain felt by large amounts of people in the population, and that, of course, is not to take away from the seriousness of an alleged assassination attempt. Anyway, I just hope that created a little bit more context for you at home. Alrighty, now, Alrighty, we're just about at the end of the show, so ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing you do today, jump onto freedomparty.net.au. That's right. Myself and the team, we are working every single day towards this election in November. For all we know, we may only have one chance to turn things around in Victoria. So therefore, it is incumbent on every man and woman who loves this state to get involved. We have great momentum. We are rolling out candidates constantly now. We have volunteers. We have a terrific support structure, a great organisational structure here at Freedom Party of Victoria. And we know without any doubt that there's certain people in the Parliament who are concerned about us, and that's exactly the way we like it. So you can become a member by heading on over to freedomparty.net.au. You can sign up to our email list, get involved. You can apply to become a candidate if you really feel that you're up for the challenge. Or you could be a volunteer. Either way, we want to hear from you. Alrighty. That just about brings us to the end of the show. I'll stick around for a bit, read through some comments, see how everyone's going. Alright, we can see Rumble is going good. There's Forzy, how you going? Alan, how are you? Lavender, great to see you again. Lots of familiar names in the chat, I can see. Moving across back to Facebook. We got Kim, how you going? It's great to see you there as well. Betty says it was a great MCJ report. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I hope the content was interesting. And everybody know that when I cover international issues, really, I think it's important for us to understand what's going on outside of our backyard so we can be more acutely aware to the dangers that could be lurking around the corner in our own backyard. There's Rex there, how you going? There's Sammy, thank you very much. And there's Sharon there. Alejandro. Alejandro is talking about the vice president there of Argentina. And stating that there's a lot of government corruption. Well, yeah, I mean, you don't get hundreds of thousands of people in the street unless there is a major, major problem, right? I think in Victoria, we know all about that, right? So again, Argentina, big reasons for protests, agreements with the International Monetary Fund, corruption, out of control crime that the government is not addressing, and the undermining of Argentinian supply chains. And I mean, we have those same problems here in Australia. I've been in Dandenong recently, speaking to a lot of business owners. I spoke to one bloke. He runs a small supermarket. He told me that he has been burgled 4 times in 12 months. The man is scared to walk down the street. Can you believe it? In a place like Melbourne. And I've also had some preliminary discussions with an individual who's involved in helping Melburnian children who have been subject to trafficking as well. So this is a topic that I hold very close to my heart. We need to do everything in our power to defend our children. Wherever there's evil, it's our job to be there to fight against that evil. So I'll be certainly making many more inquiries because we have to, of course, we have a duty to protect the innocent. That's what we need to do. There's Armstrong. How you going, my man? There's Renee up in Queensland saying, amazing work, Renee. You are also doing fantastic work on your show with Steve Dixon, and we respect both of you so much. If you see Renee in the chat, make sure that you follow Renee Eves from Queensland, a great human being, a true freedom fighter, and somebody who has beat incredible odds in the face of very, very unfair police treatment. And Renee says that we're going to do a great job, and Dan, and we're going to ditch Dan. That's right. We are going to ditch the man called Dan, this office boy who's become very good at manipulating the system. That's right. We're not going to call him powerful. We're not going to give him that sort of credit. He's just a good manipulator who's been able to slide in and out. And in the process, his decisions have resulted in immeasurable suffering for millions of people. So let's get him voted out of office. And then I dare say that some charges will be in order. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? There's AJ Linton. How you going, my man? Dean says, sack them all. And Diane says that you're praying for all freedom people. Dean says our farmers need to step up. That's right, our agriculture is under attack. I've been out in Gippsland speaking to farmers. We see that independent shooting contractors are being replaced by government agencies. So we don't like that either. We believe that us as Victorians should have greater capability to work. We know that the government spending is out of control. The bureaucracies are ballooning. I was advised that by next year, 47% of our GDP will be consumed by the public sector. So an ever-growing government. And how are these operations funded? Does the government have KPIs? Are they forced to produce cost-benefit reports to the public? No, they're not. No, they're not. They just spend our money. And I'm sure that Daniel Andrews and his colleagues would very much like to be the sole providers of employment in Victoria, because, of course, if the government can provide the essentials that people need, they can also take away the essentials of what people need. And that is the huge danger behind the emergence of a massive state. Don't let it happen. Vote wisely. All right, guys. Anyway, that is just about it for this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure that you monitor my Facebook page. Stay up to date, because the best is yet to come. All right, guys. Catch you soon. Have a great evening.
Mm-hmm.